The broken princess. The stars above the capital city of Valerian blinked without warmth. The royal palace stood tall with silver towers and glowing walls. Inside the chamber of fate, silence filled the air as Princess Lyra waited for the high Gene Master to speak. He moved slowly, his pale hands shaking. His face showed the truth even before his lips moved. Lyra's heart sank without a word being spoken. She stood straight like the royal daughter she was trained to be. Behind her eyes, a storm began to form. The master finally said the words. She could never carry life. Her line would end with her. The sacred blood of Valari royalty would find no future through her. Her womb was closed by nature itself. The court gasped without sound. The queen looked away. The king, her father, stood still like a statue made of cold iron, no emotion. No sorrow, only final judgment. To be infertile was worse than weakness. It was uselessness. Royal blood was not for pride alone. It was for power through legacy. And she had failed that same night her name was removed from the royal lists. Her chamber was cleared by silent servants. The crest on her robe was stripped. She had become a problem for the throne. She had become something that needed to be moved out of sight. But not without one final use. Weeks later, Lyra found herself inside a small Valari ship surrounded by silence once again. Her guards no longer looked at her. Her old teacher had stopped calling her princess. A message had come from Earth. The human ambassador had requested a peace gift after long trade talks. The king had agreed. He would send his broken daughter as the offering. To the humans it would look like an act of kindness. To the Valari people it would be a quiet exile. Lyra knew this. She sat alone as stars passed beyond the glass of her ship. Her mind was heavy with shame and confusion. Once a symbol of royal hope, now just an object to pass away, the ship landed near a human colony in Earth's neutral zone. It was a quiet place near green forests and open skies. Not like the sharp towers of Valerian. The landing was silent, no welcome party. No royal songs. Only a man waiting near the edge of the field. His clothes were simple. His hands showed signs of work. His eyes were calm. Not the kind of calm that hides fear, but the kind that says he has seen much and still stands tall. His name was Daniel. The name sounded soft to her alien tongue, but not unpleasant. Daniel bowed slightly. Not a deep bow like Valari custom. Just a small gesture of respect. Lyra stepped down from the ship without looking back. She was not here to belong. She was here to exist without purpose. The days that followed were not what she expected. Daniel did not treat her like a gift. He gave her a room with sunlight. He offered her food that smelled like herbs and warmth. He asked nothing from her. Not even words at first. She stayed silent, watching him from a distance, waiting for the moment he would change, waiting for the human side of him to show cruelty or control. But days passed and nothing like that came. He worked during the day on machines and soil. At night he read or listened to strange soft music. Sometimes he would speak to her even when she gave no reply. Stories about Earth, about the war with the Martians, about how peace felt like walking on glass. One step away from breaking, Lyra listened, quietly, slowly. Something inside her began to move, not fast, not strong, but like a small current under still water. She started asking questions. Why did humans care about animals? Why do they plant flowers in places no one sees? Why do they keep stories of pain and still smile? Daniel answered each question with patience. He never looked at her like a failure. Not once did he ask about her condition. He never mentioned the child she could never give. One evening, she stood in the field alone, looking at the stars. Her mind went back to the test chamber. The cold words of the Gene Master, the look on her father's face. Then she looked down at the soil under her feet. Earth was not sharp like Valerian. It was soft, alive, not perfect. But at breath that night, she joined Daniel at the table. She spoke about Valari songs, about the floating gardens of her world, about how her mother once smiled when she touched water for the first time. Daniel listened without judgment. It felt like something lost was slowly being found. In the weeks that followed, they began working together. Daniel showed her how to repair farming machines. Lyra shared ancient energy codes that helped improve the systems. They created new things side by side, not as master and servant, not as gift and owner, but as two minds slowly learning to walk together. Then it happened one morning. Lyra felt strange. Not sick, not tired, but different. Her balance was off. Her vision blurred. Daniel called a human medic who used a simple scanner. What the machine showed was not possible. A heartbeat, small but clear. New but real. Lyra looked at the screen in silence. The medic ran the test again. The results did not change. Somehow her body had begun to create life. The genes showed a mix. Human and Villari. The child was alive. Lyra sat down without speaking. Daniel stood beside her without touching. Time felt frozen. For the first time since she left her homeworld, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from something unknown. Hope, somewhere in the quiet space between two species. Between a fallen princess and a human stranger. A new future had begun to grow, and the stars above did not blink anymore. They watched unlikely peace. The sky above the colony was calm. Wind moved through the tall grass without rush. Trees stood still under morning light. Inside the small shelter Daniel had built with his own hands, silence filled the room. Lyra sat near the open window, her hand resting over her middle. The heartbeat inside her was not a dream, it was real. It was alive. She had not spoken much. Since the scan, her thoughts moved in circles. Logic told her it should not be possible. She was declared unfit. Her biology could not create life. Her bloodline had failed. But the small being growing inside her was proof that something had changed. Something that could not be explained by Villari science. Daniel walked in with a bowl of warm food. He placed it gently on the table. Lyra looked at it but said nothing. Her eyes met his. In that quiet moment, something passed between them. Not words, not thoughts. Just a soft understanding. She finally spoke, not with fear, not with shame, but with a voice steady like quiet rain. Why is this happening? Daniel sat down across from her. He did not rush to answer. He looked out the window. For a while, then turned back to her. Maybe your people tested you for something they did not fully understand. Maybe they missed something. Or maybe your body needed something else. Something only we have. Lyra listened. Her mind began to move through memories. Long lists of failed tests. Cold rooms filled with machines. The quiet judgment of her family. The emptiness of the future they gave her. And now all of that was being rewritten by something no one saw coming. They began meeting with human doctors in secret. Only a few were told the truth. The child inside her was not just alive. It was healthy, strong. The blend of DNA was stable. The doctors ran test after test. Some cried. Some whispered in disbelief. This was something new. A door never opened before. Lyra watched them with careful eyes. She saw how humans responded to life, not with control. Not with fear, but with wonder. They asked questions not to judge but to learn. They spoke softly when they explained things. They smiled when they discovered new details about the child. They called it a miracle. One night Daniel sat by the fire outside their shelter. Lyra joined him with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Stars filled the sky like small lights from a dream. She asked him why he never treated her like a gift or a problem. He looked at the fire for a long time before he answered. Because you were never either. You're a person. You didn't ask for this. And neither did I, but maybe the universe had something bigger in mind. His words stayed in her mind long after the fire burned out. In the following weeks, the bond between them deepened. They laughed more. They worked together in the garden. Lyra began drawing again. Simple shapes at first. then soft images of planets and forests. One day she drew a picture of what she thought the child might look like. Daniel smiled when he saw it. There were no sharp Velari features, no pure human traits, only a new form, balanced, gentle, whole. Their peace was short far above Earth in the dark silence of space. A Velari scout ship received hidden transmissions from the colony. The data included genetic scans. The identity of the woman carrying the child was confirmed. It was Lyra, the lost princess, the infertile heir. Now carrying the first hybrid between Velari and human, the message reached the Velari capital within hours. The king read the report in silence. His hand crushed the scroll once finished. The royal bloodline was not dead. It had changed, mixed with human impurity. A spark of life born from shame. He called his council at once. Some said the child must be taken and studied. Others said the child must be destroyed. None dared to speak in favor of the humans. None dared to say that this was hope, not threat. The king gave the order. A ship was to be sent to Earth, quietly, without official record. The princess was to be recovered or erased. The child was to be removed from existence. The bloodline must remain pure back on Earth. The air grew tense. Lyra began to feel unease in her sleep, dreams of cold metal halls. The sound of footsteps. Behind her, whispers in the dark. She woke one night with her hand shaking. Daniel held her gently without words. She knew something was coming, something from her past, something her child could not face alone. Daniel contacted his old friend Maya. She had worked in the Martian War. Now she lived near the colony as a systems engineer. He told her everything. She did not question him. She only asked one thing: how do we keep her safe? They set up signal jammers around the area. Medical equipment was moved underground. A small shelter was built deep inside the forest. Only trusted humans were allowed near it. No one spoke of it outside their circle. As days passed, Lyra began to feel the child's movement. Small flutters at first, then steady shifts. Her hand would rest over her belly for hours. She began speaking to the child, telling stories of the stars, of forests, of songs from both worlds. Daniel watched from a distance sometimes. He saw how Lyra changed. Not just her body, but her presence. She was no longer the silent princess who arrived with eyes full of walls. She had become something more. Strong, soft, real. One evening, she stood under the tree near the river. The wind moved through her hair. She placed Daniel's hand over her belly. The child moved again. His face showed awe, not surprise, not fear, just pure wonder. Lyra spoke softly. This life should not exist, but it does, and maybe it was never about what I was missing. Maybe it was about what I had never found in Daniel. Understood in a world filled with war and silence and judgment, they had found something rare, a reason to believe in something greater than rules, reason to protect what was never meant to be, because sometimes the future does not wait for permission. Sometimes it begins with a heartbeat and the courage to listen. The forbidden air. Wind carried dust across the empty ground near the forest edge. A quiet hum filled the air as solar panels rotated slowly to face the sun. Beneath the surface of the colony, Daniel and Lyra remained hidden in the underground shelter Maya had helped build. The rooms were small but warm. Lights glowed softly. Equipment blinked with quiet signals. The child growing inside Lyra was now strong enough to feel almost daily. Lyra had changed. Her eyes now carried light, not sadness. Her voice no longer held fear. She spoke with care. She walked with purpose. Every movement now held meaning because she was not just surviving anymore. She was protecting something new, something precious, something the galaxy had never seen. Daniel stayed close. He monitored energy systems and communication lines. Maya expanded the jamming field to block long-range tracking. Few people on Earth knew the truth. Fewer still were allowed near the shelter. Trust was earned, not given, but far above Earth trust had already broken. The Valari scout ship entered the outer orbit without signal or warning. Hidden by cloaking technology, it floated silently like a shadow in space. Inside the ship were 3 warriors and 1 royal agent. Their goal was simple: find the princess, remove the threat. Recover or destroy the unborn heir. The royal agent moved without emotion. His orders came directly from the king. He believed in duty. He believed in purity. He believed that royal blood must never be mixed. The child was not seen as a miracle. It was seen as poison to the throne on Earth. Maya picked up a faint disturbance. A sudden echo in the sky grid. Not clear. Not strong. But unnatural. She sent a silent alert to Daniel. Within moments he sealed the lower doors and activated the emergency protocol. Lights dimmed. Defense systems came online. Drones rose from underground pads and began silent flight around the area. Lyra sat on the medical bed, breathing slowly. The child responded to the tension in the air. Her body felt the shift. Her instincts warned her. She looked at Daniel with calm eyes but said nothing. Words were not needed now. Action had already begun. The Valari team landed far from the main colony. They used cloaked suits to move without being seen. Their scans followed Lyra's genetic trace. The hybrid child produced unique signals, signals that could not be hidden for long. The trackers locked onto a pattern near the forest edge. They moved in silence through tall grass and soft ground. 1 drone picked up movement. Maya traced it from her console. 3 life forms, not human. Heat signatures too stable. No body pulse. Valari suits. She called Daniel through the hidden line. They found you. Daniel did not panic. He moved quickly through the shelter. He handed Lyra a compact shield device. He placed a communicator in her hand. He looked at her with steady eyes and spoke with a firm voice. If I do not return soon, you go with Maya. Do not wait. Do not look back. You keep moving. You protect the child. Lyra stood up without fear. Her hands did not shake. Her voice was strong and clear. You are not facing them alone. Daniel smiled at her but did not argue. In that moment, they were not alien and human, not soldier and princess. They were something more, something stronger. The Valari reached the outer gate of the shelter. A sharp pulse from their leader disabled the first layer of defense. The drones attacked. 2 Valari fell. 1 managed to fire back. Sparks filled the trees. Smoke rose from shattered ground. The leader pressed forward. His mission was not to fight. It was to complete the order. Daniel stepped out from behind cover. His weapon was old but sharp, his aim steady. He fired once. The Valari leader blocked it with a pulse shield. They moved toward each other without words. A clash of purpose. 1 to destroy. 1 to defend. Inside the shelter, Lyra activated the genetic barrier around the medical room. A soft hum covered the walls. The child kicked. Her hand rested over her stomach. She whispered in a soft voice, "You are not alone." Maya entered the lower hallway with 2 guards. She carried a backup core for the transport unit. Her voice was quick but calm. "We are leaving in 10 minutes. You stay close outside." The battle turned rough. Daniel was knocked down. His weapon broken. Blood ran down his arm. But he stood again. Not because he could win, but because she was still inside. Because the child was not just hers now, it was his too. Not by blood, but by choice. The Valari leader raised his weapon for the final strike. But before he could fire, a high-frequency blast struck his back. Maya had rerouted one of the satellite dishes to overload nearby tech. The signal burned through the cloaking suit. The Valari fell. Silence returned. Daniel limped back inside. His eyes met Lyra's. They said nothing. But something passed between them. A silent promise. They knew this was only the beginning. Within hours, the news spread through secure channels. Earth Command had received a copy of the genetic scan. The Valari had broken treaty. They had sent armed men to human ground. The old peace. stood on a thin line. Some on Earth said the child must be protected at all costs. Others said it must be handed over to avoid war. Debates began, factions formed, fear grew, but so did hope. A small group of scientists released a private report. They claimed the hybrid DNA could be the answer to multiple genetic diseases. It could unlock healing not just for Valari or humans, but for other species too. Lyra sat in the garden Daniel had planted months ago. Flowers moved in the wind. She placed a small crystal in the soil. A piece from her mother's old necklace. A sign of memory. A sign of change. She looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there her father was watching. Maybe he had seen the report. Maybe he had seen the child's scan. Maybe he had realized that the bloodline had not ended, had evolved in the soft wind of Earth. A new future had taken root. And though the storm was still coming, the roots were deep, and they were not easy to pull. The stand on Earth clouds moved above the colony like slow rivers of light. The days grew heavy. The nights no longer brought peace. Whispers of war began to spread. The news of the hybrid child had reached leaders across the galaxy. Some saw hope in it. Others saw danger. But no one could ignore it anymore. Inside the forest shelter, Lyra stood near the window. Her hand rested on her stomach. The child now moved often. Strong, active, real. The heartbeat had grown louder in the scans. Every test showed something new. Faster development. Stronger cells. No signs of weakness. Lyra felt pride, not fear. The child was not broken. The child was not wrong. The child was life. And it was hers. Daniel worked around the clock. He built extra defense points near the outer field. He added more solar lines for energy backup. He connected the shelter to hidden power grids underground. He was not waiting for help. He was preparing to stand. Maya moved between labs and councils. She spoke to human leaders and peaceful Valari supporters. Some listened. Most feared what the hybrid meant. What if it changed the balance? What if others wanted to make more? What if it broke the old rules of blood and power? Inside the lab, one night Lyra placed her hand over a glass panel. A soft blue light spread under her skin. It was part of a system Daniel had made to monitor the baby. The panel responded to her touch. The signal grew stronger. The child could now sense the world outside the womb. Light, sound, feeling, even emotion. Daniel walked in holding a data slate. His voice was tired, but calm. They are coming. Lyra looked at him without surprise. She had known this would happen. Her father would never stay silent. He would send more than scouts. He would send a message to all who dared cross him. Daniel placed the slate on the table. Satellite images showed a small Valari fleet entering Earth space. 5 warships. No official signal. No open call. Just silent movement. A show of power without words. Earth Command called an emergency meeting. Some wanted to give Lyra to the Valari. Others wanted to hide her. Few dared to say they should fight. The Valari Empire was old, strong, proud. Earth had come far, but not enough to face full war alone. But then something happened. A message came from the people. Thousands of messages flooded the command lines. Videos, letters, live feeds. Farmers, miners, teachers, doctors, soldiers. All speaking one message in different voices. Protect the child. It was not just about the baby anymore. It was about what the baby meant. Unity. Change. A new path. A future that did not follow the old heyday. Former war general sent a short message to command. If we do not protect what gives us hope, then what are we even fighting for? Small forces began gathering near the colony. Not official armies. Not ordered. Units, volunteers, people who believe that some things are worth standing for even if the cost is unknown. Daniel watched them arrive from the hill. Old ships landing, people setting up gear. Some brought food. Some brought weapons. Others brought medical help. No one asked for reward. They came because they chose to. Lyra stepped out of the shelter and walked among them. Some had never seen a Valari before. They looked at her with wide eyes. Not in fear, but in wonder. She spoke to them with soft words. Told them the child was real. told them this was not about war. This was about life. A young girl handed Lyra a flower. A boy gave her a handmade bracelet. An old man said his granddaughter was sick and maybe one day the hybrid child could help her. Lyra listened to each story. She held each gift. She did not promise victory. She only promised truth. Above them, the Velari ships entered low orbit. A deep hum shook the sky. Lights blinked across their surface. Ground sensors picked up energy shifts. Earth defenses prepared for impact. But then a voice came through open signal. It was the Velari king. His face appeared in the sky screens. His voice echoed across the field. Cold, sharp, powerful. Give me the child. Daniel stood in front of the main screen. He raised his voice without fear. The child is not yours. The king's eyes narrowed. His voice grew harder. She carries royal blood. That child belongs to the throne. It must be brought back. Lyra stepped beside Daniel. Her voice was calm and steady. You gave me away. You cast me out. You said I had no worth. Now I carry life and you want it. Not because you care, but because it threatens your power. The king said nothing for a moment. Then his voice returned colder. Then before you choose to speak like them, then you will fall like them. The signal ended. Everyone began moving fast. Shields raised, positions locked, defense lines activated. The air became thick. Even the trees felt tense. Lyra returned to the shelter. The child kicked again. She spoke softly. You are not a weapon. You are not a prize. You are a beginning. Daniel stayed near the gate. His hand gripped a small device that could trigger the shield core. He knew this would not be a fair fight. But he also knew that surrender was not an option. Maya joined him. She handed him a headset. They are going to strike in waves. First shock, then force. But we have eyes, we have hearts. And sometimes that is enough. The sky turned bright as the first Velari ship lowered. Energy beams moved like fire across the horizon. Earth defense fired back. The field lit up like a storm. The first wave hit the outer gates. Drones flew fast. Humans fought beside machines. Smoke rose. Fire burned. But the line held inside the shelter. Lyra closed her eyes and placed both hands over her stomach. She sang an old Velari lullaby, the same one her mother had sung long ago. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. But her voice did not shake. Then something strange happened. The power in the room surged. Lights flickered. The monitors showed spikes in energy. The child's heartbeat changed rhythm. A low pulse began to spread across the floor. The machines could not explain it. The child was responding, not in fear but in strength, outside the battle. Paused. A wave of soft energy moved through the ground. Not deadly, not violent, but powerful. The weapons of both sides stopped. Screens blinked. Engines stalled. A quiet vibration filled the air. Daniel heard it. Maya felt it. The Velari ships paused mid-flight. The child had reached out not to harm, but to be heard, and the world listened. Air of two worlds. The ground was silent after the wave passed. The wind had stopped moving. Birds had gone quiet. Machines stood frozen. No weapon worked. No ship moved. The power that had flowed through the land was not from any system. It came from something living, something new, something born from both. Worlds inside the shelter. Lyra sat still, her eyes closed, her hands resting over her stomach. She felt the energy moving not around her, but through her. It was warm, it was soft, it carried memories she never lived, places she never saw, voices that were not hers. It was the child speaking, not with words, not with sound, but with something deeper. Daniel stood just outside the main gate. His breath was heavy, his clothes torn from the blast, but his eyes were wide. He had felt the wave pass through his bones, not like fire, not like pain, but like music that touched something inside him. He looked toward the sky. The Velari ships had stopped in place. Their lights blinking like confused stars. Maya sent a message across the command grid. All systems had dropped for 90 seconds. Weapons shut down. Signals cut off. Engines stalled. And then everything came back without warning. But nothing was the same anymore. Something had shifted. Something no one could explain. The Velari king appeared again on the main channel. His face no longer carried fire. His voice no longer held rage. He had felt the wave from his ship. His soldiers had fallen to their knees, not from force, but from something they could not fight. The king looked at the screen. His eyes met Lyra. Spoke slowly. His voice lower than before. What is this? Lyra answered without fear. Her voice was clear. This is the future. The king did not speak for a while. Behind him the royal guard stood still. Scientists whispered in his ear. They showed him reports from the ship's systems, data that made no sense, power levels that broke rules, codes that had never existed. They said the energy came from a living source. They said it was not human, not Velari. It was something new. The king turned back to Lyra. His words came soft, and the child she looked down for a moment, then back at the screen. The child is alive, strong, whole, not a threat. A bridge. Daniel stepped into view. His voice steady. You feared what you could not control. You called her unfit. You sent her away. But life chose her. And now that life has chosen to speak, the king looked tired. His face showed years of war, years of pride, years of command. But in this moment he looked like a father who had seen something he could not deny. He took a deep breath. Then he said the words no one expected. I will not fire. Maya stood at her station watching the broadcast. Earth command officers stared at the screen. Soldiers on the ground lowered their weapons. The people near the colony wept without sound. The threat had stopped, not with blood, not with fire, but with truth. Velari ships began to turn. One by one they pulled back. No warning, no sound, just quiet retreat. A message was sent to Earth Council. It was short. No war, no claims, no demands. Just peace inside the shelter. Lyra felt the child shift again. The energy had calmed. The heartbeat was strong. Her body felt light. She knew what was coming. She called Daniel. She called Maya, she said. It was time. The birth was not easy. Pain came in waves. Sweat ran down her skin, but she did not cry out. She held onto Daniel's hand. She focused on the rhythm, on the life moving through her. The lights dimmed. Machines blinked. The energy pulsed again, and then a sound filled the room. A cry, not loud, not sharp, but steady. The child was born. Maya held the baby in her arms. Her hands shook. Her eyes filled with tears. She handed the child to Lyra, a small soft body, skin that glowed faint blue under the light, eyes that opened wide and bright. No fear, only calm. Daniel looked down at them, his heart full. He had no words, only feeling. Lyra whispered to the child, you were never impossible. Only waiting. News spread faster. Then light. Across Earth, across space, across Velari systems, a new life had been born. A hybrid child, the first of its kind. The heir of two worlds. Velari doctors arrived under peaceful flag. Human researchers joined hands with them. Together they studied the child's signals. The energy waves, the genetic patterns. None of it fit any known law, but all of it worked perfectly. The child grew fast, not in size, but in awareness. Within days the baby could follow light, could mimic sound, could respond to voices with soft movement. The systems around the child adjusted without being touched. Machines near the crib blinked with strange code. A new pattern was forming. Lyra and Daniel raised the child without fear. They did not try to hide. They shared the story with the world. The people did not look with hate. They looked with wonder. Schools taught the history. Songs were made. Artists painted the child not as a ruler, but as a symbol. The Velari king sent one last message. He did not speak much, but he asked for a name. Lyra answered with a smile. Hope, that was the name they gave the child. Not because it sounded grand, but because it felt true. Years passed. The colony became a place of learning, a place of peace. People from different systems visited to see the child, to understand the connection, to study the bridge between stars. Lyra walked often through the garden, her steps light, her eyes soft. Daniel joined her each time. They watched Hope play with the other children, no longer feared, no longer hidden. Just one child among many. Hope touched a flower, and it bloomed early. Touched a stone, and it hummed. Life around her changed in small ways, not forced, not loud. Just quiet magic. She was not a weapon. She was not a miracle. She was the proof that change does not come by force alone. It comes when someone dares to believe, and someone dares to care. And so the stars watched again, not with silence, but with wonder. A new story had begun, and it started with a girl who was told she was broken, but gave birth to a future that would never be forgotten. The end.